My name is Maren Whitlock, and the night my sister got engaged, she pulled me out of my wheelchair because my black carbon chair ruined her pastel photos. I hit a 9-tier champagne tower in front of both families, bleeding across her perfect stone floor, while she screamed about her ruined dress. But Cassie forgot one thing. Her fiancé's aunt was a neurosurgeon, and she knew exactly what a real spinal cord injury looked like. By the time the ambulance doors closed, my sister was in handcuffs. Her fiancé had seen the truth, and the accident my family buried for 30 months was about to destroy every lie they had protected. Chapter 1: The Black Wheelchair at the perfect party. The champagne tower came down like glass rain. For one breath, Magnolia Gate Botanical Conservatory went silent. Then everything came back at once. The scream of a woman near the Rose Arch, the crash of crystal stems rolling across stone, the wet splash of champagne spreading under my shoulder, the sharp sting of broken glass cutting into my palms when I tried to catch myself too late. My wheelchair lay on its side a few feet away from me, one black carbon wheel still spinning slowly under the soft June lights. Cassie stood above me in her ivory engagement dress, soaked at the hem, her perfect hair coming loose around her face. She did not ask if I could feel my legs. She did not ask if my head had hit the floor. She did not even look at the blood running down my wrist. "You ruined it, Maren," she said. "My $7,000 dress, my pictures. You always have to make everything about you." I could not move. Not the way people mean when they say they freeze. I mean my body would not obey below the place where the Jeep accident had cut my life in half 30 months earlier. My legs were twisted somewhere beneath me, useless and silent. My left hand was bleeding onto pale pink silk. Champagne dripped from my hair onto the stone. And still, the only thing my sister saw was her ruined photograph. 90 minutes earlier, I had told myself I could survive one afternoon. That was how I talked myself into most family events after the accident. One Thanksgiving dinner, one birthday brunch, one Christmas Eve service where my mother's church friends stared at my chair like it was a tragic centerpiece. One more gathering where everyone pretended the Whitlock family was still whole, still respectable, still the kind of family people in Charleston smiled at from across a sanctuary. Cassidy Whitlock's engagement party was supposed to be the hardest one yet, but I went anyway. I arrived at Magnolia Gate Botanical Conservatory in an accessible rideshare, wearing a pale pink silk dress that had taken me a full week to choose. The invitation had said spring pastel only, written in Cassie's looping bridal font, as if color coordination were a moral requirement. I had almost worn navy out of spite. Then I heard my mother's voice in my head, soft and dangerous, asking me not to make things difficult. So I wore pink. My wheelchair was black. That was not a statement. It was not rebellion. It was simply the chair I owned, a 17-pound carbon frame that had cost $6,800, and almost a year of pieced-together savings. Freelance medical editing invoices, disability payments, a box of ballet shoes I sold to a collector online because I could no longer bear to see them lined up in my closet like a row of small ghosts. That chair was not an accessory. It was my independence. It got me through grocery store doors and doctors' offices. It let me cross parking lots without begging someone to push me. It let me work, leave my apartment, and be seen on my own terms. But to Cassie, it had always been evidence of the thing our family did not discuss clearly. Evidence that the accident on December 18, 2022, had not been the vague tragedy my parents described in church parking lots. Evidence that something had happened in that Jeep and that my sister could not stand looking at what survived it. The conservatory had been transformed into a southern bridal fantasy. Pastel roses climbed white trellises. Mint hydrangeas spilled from urns. A string quartet played near the glass wall, soft enough to make everyone feel expensive. Champagne waited in narrow crystal flutes. The Granger family stood in linen and pearls, smiling with the relaxed confidence of people who had never had to wonder whether a doorway was wide enough. And then there was Cassie. She stood near the center of the garden in an ivory designer dress, one hand resting on Elliot Granger's arm, her diamond catching the light every time she laughed. Cassie was 33, 3 years younger than me, but she had always moved through the world like the main character and the injured party at the same time. If she broke something, someone else had startled her. If she hurt someone, they had made her emotional. If she lied, it was because the truth had been cruel to her first. Elliot saw me before she did. He was tall, clean-cut, 37. The kind of architect who looked like he had been drawn with a ruler. He stepped forward as if to greet me, then glanced at my chair and the stone path. "Maren, I'm glad you made it," he said gently. "Do you need a hand with the slope?" Before I could answer, Cassie appeared beside him. She smiled at me like a camera had turned on Maren. "You came, there it was." Surprise wrapped in sweetness. I smiled back because I had practiced that too. "Of course. Congratulations, Cass." Her eyes dropped to my wheelchair for less than a second, but I saw the shift. The tiny tightening around her mouth. The calculation, behind her, my mother, Nora Whitlock, watched from beside the champagne table. 64 years old, retired elementary teacher, church committee favorite, professional keeper of family peace. My father, Calvin, stood beside her in a summer suit, his face already arranged into the look he used when he wanted me to endure something quietly. I handed Cassie the small cream-colored gift box resting in my lap. She blinked, as if she had forgotten I might bring one. They were vintage pearl earrings, simple and old-fashioned, the kind our grandmother used to wear on Easter. When Cassie and I were children, she used to open Grandma's jewelry box and whisper that pearls made a woman look like she had a secret. I remembered. I had no idea if she did. Cassie lifted the lid with 2 fingers. Her smile thinned. "Secondhand?" The word was soft, but it carried. "They're vintage," I said. "I remembered you used to like Grandma's pearls." Cassie gave a small laugh and glanced toward Elliot's mother, Margot Granger, who was polite enough to look away. "That's sweet," Cassie said. "I'm not sure they match the wedding look, but thank you." She set the box on a cocktail table behind her, half hidden under a folded napkin, and turned back to Elliot as if I had handed her a receipt. I told myself not to care. I had survived spinal surgery. I had survived learning how to transfer from bed to chair, while my legs lay heavy and indifferent beneath me. I had survived the first time I saw a ballet studio after the accident and realized I would never again feel a wood floor under my feet. I could survive my sister not liking earrings. Then Cassie looked at my chair again. "Did you have to bring the black one?" I thought I misheard her. "What?" She leaned closer, still smiling for anyone who might be watching. "It's just very harsh against the palate. Everything is soft today. The pictures are supposed to be soft. My chair is not decor, Cassie." Her eyes flashed. "Don't be dramatic. I'm just saying maybe you could have chosen something less depressing." There it was. The real Cassie, slipping through the bridal polish. I took a breath. "This is the only chair I have." Cassie's gaze moved over the frame, the wheels, my legs. Then she picked up a white tablecloth from a nearby service cart and shook it loose with a little laugh. "We can fix it. Just for the photos. It'll look cleaner." She stepped toward me with the cloth. For a second, I did not move. Not because I agreed, but because my mind could not quite accept what she was doing. My sister was about to cover my wheelchair, and maybe my legs, the way a caterer might hide a stack of folding chairs. I caught the edge of the cloth before it touched me. No, the word came out quiet, but it landed. Cassie's smile vanished. Around us, conversations dipped and rose again. My mother's eyes sharpened from across the garden. My father looked into his drink. Cassie bent close enough that only I could hear her. "Today is not about your chair." I looked down at the black carbon frame beneath my hands. For 30 months, that chair had carried the weight my family refused to name. Cassie did not want it hidden because it was ugly. She wanted it hidden because it told the truth by existing. I let go of the tablecloth. "Neither is your engagement party about pretending I can walk." Her face went still. For a while after that, Cassie did not speak to me directly. She did something worse. She moved through the party in small circles, laughing softly, touching people's arms, dropping my name into conversations with the careful sadness of a person asking for sympathy. I caught pieces. Maren has been so sensitive since the accident. She gets upset if we don't center everything around accessibility. Sometimes I think the chair became her whole identity. Not once did she say fake. Not where I could hear it clearly. Cassie was smarter than that in public. She planted softer words, the kind that let other people grow the accusation for her. Mavis Cole, one of my mother's closest church friends, came to stand beside me near the hydrangeas. "You look lovely, dear," she said, with the careful tone people use around hospital beds. "Just remember, today is Cassie's day. Families need grace, grace." In my family, that word had always meant I was about to be asked to swallow something sharp. I looked toward my parents again. My mother gave me the smallest shake of her head. My father adjusted his cuff links and studied the floor. Then Tara Bell, the wedding photographer, clapped her hands near the rose arch and called for family portraits. Cassie brightened instantly. Everyone moved toward the staged photo area, where a blush pink banquet chair sat in the center beneath a wall of flowers. The champagne tower stood behind it, 9 glittering levels high. Cassie looked from the chair to me. "Maren," she said, sweat enough for the guests to hear, "let's move the wheelchair out of the shot. You can sit here for one picture." I felt every eye shift toward me. "I can't sit in that chair safely." Her smile tightened. "It has arms. That doesn't matter. I don't have core balance. My injury is at T10 and T11. If I don't have proper support, I can fall." Cassie laughed under her breath. "You always do this. You use medical words so nobody can argue with you." My mother stepped closer and murmured, "Just try for one picture." Something inside me went cold. I looked at her. "Mom, I could fall." Cassie's face hardened. "You won't fall if you stop fighting everyone." She bent down before I could move back. Her hand slid under my left arm, fingers digging into a place still tender from years of transfers and strain. "Cassie, stop. If you won't move yourself, I'll help you." I gripped the rim of my wheel. My palm slipped. Her other hand caught under my right arm. She pulled hard. Not like someone helping, but like someone yanking a suitcase out of a doorway. My body left the seat for one impossible second. I was upright without support, suspended between her hands and my own terror. Then Cassie's heel caught on the hem of her dress. She stumbled. Her grip loosened. My right hand scraped uselessly across the wheel. The garden tilted, the rose wall blurred, the champagne tower flashed in front of me. All glass and light and impossible height, and as I fell, the last thing I understood was not that my sister had pulled me from my wheelchair. It was that everyone had seen her do it. Chapter 2. The woman knew my spine. Then the champagne tower exploded around me. Not all at once. That was the strange part. The first level cracked beneath my shoulder with a bright, delicate sound, almost pretty, like a toast being made in another room. Then the higher glasses collapsed in a rush, stems snapping, bowls bursting, champagne spilling cold down my neck and into the front of my dress. Something heavy struck my right shoulder. A bottle, I thought, because the pain came deep and blunt, nothing like the sharp cuts opening across my palms. For a second, no one moved. I heard the quartet stop playing. I heard someone gasp near the rose arch. I heard a glass roll in a slow circle beside my ear. Then Cassie screamed. Not my name, not for help. "My dress," she cried. Oh my God, my dress. Champagne soaked into the pale pink silk over my stomach. Blood slid down the inside of my wrist. My legs were twisted somewhere below me. One foot caught beneath the collapsed edge of the champagne stand, but I could not feel it. That was always the cruelest part. People saw the strange angle and panicked. I saw it and had to guess whether I was injured because my body no longer sent me messages from there. A man stepped forward, then another woman, both reaching for me. "Don't move her," someone said, sharp enough to cut through the chaos. Someone said sharp did not belong to my mother. A woman in a cream pantsuit pushed through the frozen crowd with the authority of someone used to being obeyed in emergencies. Her silver hair was swept back from her face, her eyes already scanning the ground, the glass, the angle of my head, the chair lying on its side a few feet away. "Everyone back up," she said. "Do not touch her." Cassie turned on her. "She's fine, she does this." The woman ignored her and knelt beside me, careful not to put her hands in the champagne and blood spreading across the stone. She leaned close enough that I could smell clean soap and gardenia perfume beneath the alcohol. Maren, can you hear me? I tried to nod and pain flashed through the side of my neck. Don't move your head, she said immediately. Just answer me. Are you having trouble breathing? No, I whispered. Any new pain in your neck or back? My shoulder. My hands. My head hit. I know. Stay still. Cassie made a sound of disgust behind her. This is ridiculous. She pulled herself over. She wanted attention because I asked her to sit in a chair for one picture. The woman's head lifted slowly. I am Dr. Adrienne Bellamy, she said. I am a neurosurgeon. This woman has a documented spinal cord injury. Moving her incorrectly can cause serious harm. Someone call 911 now. The garden went quiet again, but this time the silence was different. It was not shock anymore. It was recognition. Elliot was standing near the broken tower, his phone halfway out of his pocket, his face drained of color. Cassie grabbed his wrist. Don't you dare, she said. Elliot. She's being dramatic. She always does this. He looked from her hand to me, then to Dr. Bellamy. Call. Dr. Bellamy said, without looking away from my face. Elliot pulled his wrist free and dialed. I had known there was a Dr. Bellamy somewhere in Elliot's family. He had mentioned her once at my mother's Astor brunch, when Nora was performing her favorite version of Concern and asking whether I had found a new specialist. I had not known the woman who stepped between me and my family would be that doctor. I had not known help could sound so calm. Cassie took a step back as if the word neurosurgeon had insulted her personally. She's not helpless, Cassie snapped. She transfers herself all the time. She just wanted to make me look cruel. Dr. Bellamy's hand remained steady near my shoulder, not pressing, just guarding me from the crowd. The cruel part was already handled, she said. Someone made a small sound, maybe a gasp, maybe a laugh that died before it could fully exist. My mother pushed forward then, her face tight, her church smile gone. Adrienne, Nora said, as though first names could soften the room. This is a family matter. The girls have always been emotional with each other. Dr. Bellamy did not even blink. Mrs. Whitlock, your daughter is lying in broken glass with a head injury. You do not get to speak for the patient for the first time all afternoon. My mother had nothing ready. My father stood behind her with one hand on her elbow, looking not at me but at the guests. He was calculating damage. Calvin Whitlock had spent his whole adult life in banking, measuring risk, reputation, liability. I watched his eyes move from the shattered tower to my overturned wheelchair to Tara Bell, the photographer, who still held her camera against her chest like she had forgotten how hands worked. Tara looked horrified, but her camera had been pointed at us. A man stepped out from near the Granger side of the family. Graham Latimer, Elliot's business partner, the man I had been introduced to 20 minutes earlier, and immediately forgotten because Cassie had dragged Elliot away. I saw it, Graham said. Cassie whipped toward him. You saw me try to help her. No, he said. I was 6 feet away. You put both hands under her arms and pulled her out of the chair. She told you to stop. That sentence moved through the garden like a second crash. Cassie's mouth opened, closed, opened again. The guests around her shifted back, not far, just enough to make space around the truth. Elliot spoke into his phone, voice uneven but clear. We need an ambulance at Magnolia Gate Botanical Conservatory. A woman fell into glass. She has a spinal cord injury. There may have been an assault. Cassie stared at him as if he had slapped her. May have been, she repeated. Elliot. He did not look at her. Minutes stretched strangely after that. Dr. Bellamy kept me talking in short answers. My name, the date, whether my vision blurred, whether the numbness below my waist felt different than usual. I wanted to laugh at that one. Different than usual. There was no usual that sounded sane to people who had never woken up and found half their body had become a locked room. The paramedics arrived first, then 2 police officers just behind them. One officer, a woman with dark hair pulled into a tight bun, began asking who had seen the fall. Another spoke with Elliot. Dr. Bellamy gave the paramedics a concise medical summary, no more than they needed. She did not announce my surgical history to the whole garden. She did not turn me into a diagnosis. She simply made sure no one treated me like a dropped prop. They slid a collar around my neck and lifted me with practiced care. Pain burst through my shoulder when they moved me, and I bit down so hard my teeth clicked. Cassie started crying then, not softly, not with remorse. With outrage, I didn't push her. She grabbed me. She hates me. She's been waiting for a chance to ruin this. The female officer looked at her. Mom, did you put your hands on her before she fell? Cassie's crying stopped for half a second. I was helping her. Did she ask for help? Cassie looked toward our mother. Nora stepped forward. Officer, this has been a very stressful day. My daughters have a complicated relationship. Dr. Bellamy's voice cut in. That was not the question. I was lifted onto the stretcher before I could see my mother's face fully. But I heard the room change around her. All those years Nora had survived by softening words. Accident, misunderstanding, sensitivity, family tension. For once, someone refused to let her replace an action with a mood. As they wheeled me toward the ambulance, Cassie tried to follow. Maren, she called, suddenly sweet, suddenly frightened. Tell them it was an accident. I turned my head as much as the collar allowed. You pulled me. Her face twisted. You fell. The officer stepped between us. Mom, you need to stay back. Cassie tried to move around her, reaching toward Elliot. Tell them. Tell them I was helping. Elliot stood frozen, his phone still in his hand. The officer told Cassie again to step back. Cassie did not. She lunged towards the stretcher, not close enough to touch me, but close enough for the officer to catch her arm and turn her away. When Cassie jerked back, shouting that everyone was insane, the second officer took her other wrist. She was not sentenced in the garden. She was not tried beside the roses. But she was placed in handcuffs at her own engagement party, with champagne drying on her dress and every guest watching the perfect bride become a suspect. The last thing I saw before the ambulance doors closed was my wheelchair. It lay beside the ruined tower, black against white stone, one wheel bent, the frame scraped. The tablecloth Cassie had tried to throw over it soaked through with champagne and blood. She had wanted it hidden. Now it looked like evidence. At Low Country Regional Medical Center, everything became white lights and careful hands. CT scan, X-rays, irrigation, stitches. Questions repeated by people with badges and people with stethoscopes. I had a mild concussion, deep cuts across both hands, smaller cuts along my neck and forearms, and bruising on my right shoulder where the bottle had landed. My spine, by some mercy I did not feel grateful for until much later, had not suffered new damage. The nurse told me my wheelchair had been brought in separately, but looked badly damaged. I almost laughed. Of course it was. Cassie had not just thrown me into glass. She had damaged the only thing that let me move through the world without asking permission. Dr. Bellamy came into the exam room after they finished stitching my left palm. Elliot was with her, standing near the door, as if he was not sure he had the right to enter. I'm sorry, he said. His voice broke on the second word. I looked at him through the dull pulse of pain medication. For what? For believing her. That was the first time my chest tightened in a way that had nothing to do with injury. What did she tell you? Elliot looked at Dr. Bellamy, then back at me. He swallowed. She said the Jeep accident happened because you were drunk. That you grabbed the wheel. That afterward you blamed her because you couldn't accept what happened. For a moment, the room seemed to tilt worse than the garden had. I had heard versions of the lie before. Whispers at family gatherings. Careful pauses when I entered rooms. My mother saying people did not need every painful detail. But I had never heard it laid out so cleanly, so completely, like a story Cassie had polished and handed to the man she planned to marry. I was not drinking, I said. I know, Elliot said quickly. I know that now. I should have asked more. I should have questioned it. Dr. Bellamy moved closer to the bed. Maren, she said, I need to ask your permission before I say anything more specific. That single sentence almost undid me. Permission. Not pressure. Not family duty. Not be reasonable for Cassie. I nodded. She continued carefully. I was part of the surgical consult after your 2022 accident. I remember your case. You were 33, a dancer, with a severe thoracic spinal injury. If you decide to pursue legal action, I can help your attorney request the medical records through the proper channels. 8 screws, I said quietly. Because the number had lived inside me for 30 months. Dr. Bellamy's expression softened. Yes. Elliot's phone buzzed. He glanced down before he could stop himself. His face changed, Dr. Bellamy noticed. What is it? He held the phone out, not to me first, but to her, as if it had become contaminated. It was from a number I did not recognize, but the message preview showed enough. Tell them Maren grabbed me first. You owe me that. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Elliot set the phone on the rolling tray beside my bed like it was another piece of broken glass. Dr. Bellamy looked from the message to me. Maren, she said, this is no longer just a family matter. I closed my eyes. The pain in my hands throbbed beneath the bandages. My shoulder burned. Somewhere down the hall, a machine beeped in a steady rhythm, calm and indifferent. Cassie did not scare me most anymore. What scared me was knowing my parents had spent 30 months protecting her from the truth, and now that the truth had witnesses, they would come for me next. Chapter 3. The lie they made me care. For 2 days, I let the hospital room become smaller than the world outside it. There was the IV taped to the back of my hand. There was the dull ache in my shoulder, where the bottle had struck me. There were the bandages across my palms, thick enough to make my fingers clumsy when I tried to hold a cup. There was the pale wall across from my bed, the muted television no one had turned on, and the steady sound of wheels passing in the hallway. I did not look at my phone for the first 6 hours, then 12, then almost a full day. I told myself it was because of the concussion, because the screen made my eyes throb, because Dr. Bellamy had told me to rest. But the truth was simpler. I knew my family. I knew silence was never empty in the Whitlock house. If I was not telling the story, someone else already was. The first message I opened was not from my mother. It was from Lena Ortiz. Lena owned a medical content agency I had freelanced for since the 2nd year after the accident. I edited patient education materials, grant summaries, disability access reports. The kind of work no one noticed when it was done well, and everyone blamed when it was done badly. It was not ballet. Nothing would ever be ballet. But it was work I could do from my chair, with my mind sharp and my body safe. Her email was short. Maren, I am so sorry for everything happening right now. Until the public situation becomes clearer, we need to pause your current contract. This is not a judgment. We just have to protect our client relationships. I read it 3 times before the words settled. Public situation, not assault, not injury. Not my sister pulled me out of a wheelchair in front of witnesses. A situation. Cassie had reached my income before I had even left the hospital. After that, I made the mistake of opening everything. A cousin from Savannah wrote, Cassie was wrong, but prison would destroy her. A woman from my mother's church wrote, forgiveness is sometimes the only way a family survives. Then Mavis Cole sent a longer message, full of prayer hands and soft cruelty. Your mother is heartbroken. I know pain can make us hard, but this is your sister's future. Please do not let one emotional moment ruin 2 young lives. 2 young lives. I was 36 years old, lying in a hospital bed with stitches in both hands because my sister had yanked me out of the chair I needed to move. But somehow in Mavis Cole's version, Cassie and I were both girls caught in a sad misunderstanding. Then I saw my mother's Facebook post. Nora Whitlock had chosen a photo from the engagement party taken before the fall. Cassie laughing under the rose arch. Elliot beside her. Me at the edge of the frame, half visible, my black wheel just barely showing. Under it, my mother had written, please pray for our family. A tragic misunderstanding at Cassidy's engagement celebration has left both of my daughters hurting. We ask for privacy, compassion, and forgiveness while we heal together. I stared at the word misunderstanding until it blurred. Cassie had put both hands under my arms and pulled. Graham had seen it. Tara's camera had seen it. Dr. Bellamy had seen what happened after. But my mother had already begun the old work of sanding down facts until they were smooth enough to swallow. A knock came at the door. Elliot stood there holding a folder, still wearing the same exhausted face he had carried out of the conservatory. His dress shirt was wrinkled now, his tie gone, his eyes red in a way that made him look younger. "Can I come in?" I nodded. He stayed near the chair beside my bed, not sitting until I told him it was okay. That small hesitation nearly broke me. My own parents had never asked permission before stepping into my pain. "I brought something," he said. He placed the folder on the rolling tray. Inside were printed screenshots, text messages from Cassie sent over months, maybe years. I recognized her phrasing before I recognized the lies. One message said I had been drinking the night of the Jeep accident. Another said I had grabbed the wheel. Another said I blamed Cassie because I needed someone to punish. Elliot's voice was low. I believed her. I am ashamed of that. I looked at the pages, at the clean black letters that had carried a false version of me into his life. She did not just lie about what happened, I said. She made me the villain in the story she needed to survive. Elliot closed his eyes. "I am sorry, Maren." Before I could answer, Dr. Bellamy came in with another woman beside her. The woman was about 49, with dark hair cut just below her jaw and a navy blazer that looked expensive without trying to look expensive. "This is Elena Hart," Dr. Bellamy said. "She is a civil attorney. Personal injury, disability rights, long-term care claims. I asked if she could speak with you, but only if you want that." Elena did not offer a pity smile. I liked her immediately. "I am not here to take over your life," she said. "The criminal case belongs to the solicitor's office and the prosecutor assigned to it. I cannot make a plea deal disappear or create charges out of thin air. What I can do is protect your civil interests, preserve evidence, request records properly, and make sure your family does not pressure you into signing away your rights." The word family landed hard. Elena sat only after I nodded. "Tell me about December 18th, 2022. The room seemed to dim at the edges. I had been 33 then. I was still teaching ballet part-time, still pretending my knees would forgive me forever, still planning a small dance therapy workshop for girls who did not believe their bodies were beautiful unless someone applauded them. Cassie drove that night, a Jeep Wrangler, white. Too clean for how fast she liked to take curves. We had left a family dinner outside Charleston. Rain misted across the windshield. I remember the wipers squeaking. I remember Cassie's phone lighting up in the cup holder. Dylan Reeves, her ex. She had been texting him all night under the table, smiling when she thought no one saw, and biting her lip when he did not answer fast enough. "Put the phone down," I told her. "I am not a child. You are driving. It is one text." It was never one text with Cassie. The road shone black under the headlights. She looked down too long. The Jeep drifted right. I said her name. She snapped at me to stop controlling her. Then the tires hit the shoulder, the steering wheel jerked, and the tree came through the sound of metal like the world cracking open. I remembered the airbag, the smell of powder, Cassie screaming, then nothing from my waist down. When I woke after surgery, I thought my mother would be crying because I was hurt. She was crying, but not for the reason I needed. "Cassie is falling apart," she whispered beside my bed. "Please do not make this worse." My father stood behind her, pale and rigid. "The report may list her as the driver," Calvin said. "But reports can become lawsuits, charges, insurance problems. Your sister still has a future, Maren." I was on pain medication. I was terrified. I had just been told I might never walk again, and my parents were already asking me to protect the person who had been holding the phone. They protected Cassie's future. I told Elena, by stealing mine. No one interrupted. That was how I knew I had finally said it in a room where someone heard me. Elena requested the police report, the insurance file, and my medical records. Dr. Bellamy explained that she could help with the hospital documentation once I signed the proper authorization. Nothing was grabbed. Nothing was whispered through family connections. Everything had to be done correctly, which somehow made me feel safer. By the next afternoon, Elena had already heard from a man named Parker Shaw, an insurance investigator reviewing the old Jeep file. She put him on speaker with my permission. "Mems Whitlock," he said, The initial police report lists Cassidy Whitlock as the driver and you as the restrained passenger. Your toxicology was 0.0. There is no mention of you grabbing the steering wheel. My bandaged fingers curled against the sheet. Parker continued. What concerns me is that later family statements submitted during the insurance process suggested you created an emergency inside the vehicle. That did not change the driver designation, but it may have influenced the handling of liability. Elena asked, anything else? There is a supplemental note indicating possible phone activity from Cassidy Whitlock's device near the time of impact. To confirm that, someone would need records or a subpoena. The room went very still. That was when my parents arrived. My mother came in first with red eyes and a casserole dish, because Nora Whitlock believed food could disguise manipulation. My father followed with a folded paper in his hand. You look tired, my mother said. I am tired. Calvin placed the paper on my blanket. It is just a statement, he said. It says you do not believe Cassie intended to hurt you. I looked at the paper, then at him. She pulled me out of my wheelchair. She panicked, Nora said. She is losing everything. Something in me went quiet and clean. When I lost my legs, what exactly did she lose? My father opened his mouth. Nothing came out. A voice from the doorway said, that is enough. Renee Whitlock stood there in scrubs, her hospital badge still clipped to her pocket. My cousin, a rehab nurse. The woman my mother had probably called to talk sense into me. But Renee was looking at my bandaged hands, not at the statement. No wheelchair user should ever be forced out of their chair for a family picture, she said. My mother turned on her. Renee, this is not your place. Renee stepped into the room. Then stopped making it everyone's place to pressure her. For the first time in 30 months, someone with my blood chose me while my parents were watching. Later that evening, Lena called. Her voice shook as she said one of her hospital clients still wanted my contract paused until the scandal settled. I told her I understood, because professionalism was easier than crying. Then I hung up and cried anyway. Cassie had taken the stage from me once. Now she was reaching for the desk where I had rebuilt my life. Just before midnight, Elena came back with the police report in her hand. She did not summarize it first. She let me read it. Cassidy Whitlock, driver. Maren Whitlock, restrained passenger. Blood alcohol, 0.0. No evidence passenger interfered with vehicle operation. The truth had been there the whole time, not hidden in memory, not buried in emotion. Printed. Filed. Dated. Elena watched me fold the paper against my chest. This changes the civil case, she said. And if your parents are pressuring you or anyone else to change statements now, it may affect the criminal case too. I looked toward the dark window, where my reflection sat pale and bandaged in the hospital bed. My parents would not stop. They had spent 30 months protecting a lie. Now they had 7 witnesses, 1 police report, and 1 daughter who had finally stopped carrying it. Chapter 4. Family doesn't get. To bury evidence, I left Low Country Regional 3 days after the fall with 30 stitches, a concussion sheet, a plastic bag of blood-stained clothes, and a chair that was not mine. The hospital loaner was heavier than my own wheelchair, wider at the wheels, stiff in the turns, the kind of chair designed to move a patient from one room to another, not a person through a life. Every push tugged at the bandages across my palms. Every doorway reminded me that independence could be measured in inches. My apartment was on the ground floor, which people heard and assumed it meant accessible. It did not. The front threshold had a lip just high enough to catch my wheels if I came at it tired. The bathroom door was narrow. The shower had a raised edge I had to transfer over with a bench that wobbled if I shifted too fast. The kitchen counters were built for someone standing. My microwave sat at shoulder height. If I dropped something behind the stove, it might as well have fallen into another state. I had lived there because it was what I could afford. Because after the Jeep, my parents had said they would help later. Because later, in the Whitlock family, usually meant after Cassie was done needing something. Elena Hart came by the afternoon I got home. She did not bring flowers. She brought a folder and a legal pad. I sent preservation letters this morning, she said. I was at the kitchen table, trying to open a bottle of pain medication with bandaged fingers. To who? To Cassie, your parents, Elliot Granger, Tara Bell, Graham Latimer, Magnolia Gate Botanical Conservatory, and Granger Latimer Architects. Video, photographs, messages, incident reports, internal emails, insurance records. No one gets to accidentally lose anything now. The words should have sounded cold. Instead, they sounded like locks clicking into place. Will that stop them? Elena looked at me over her glasses. No, but it makes lying more expensive. That evening, I spoke with Adia Marcus Whitcomb from the solicitor's office. His voice was measured, not unkind, but careful in the way prosecutors are careful when they know victims have already been promised too much by people who wanted them quiet. Ms. Whitlock, the charging decision is ours. You have the right to be informed, the right to request no contact, and the right to make a victim impact statement later, if the case reaches that point. But I do not want anyone telling you that you personally control the criminal case. I appreciated that more than he knew. What are you considering? Felony aggravated assault. Your documented disability is an aggravating factor. We are also reviewing the conduct after the incident. That was a polite way of saying Cassie had tried to rewrite the scene before my blood was dry. She was out on bond within 24 hours, with an order not to contact me directly. Directly was the word everyone learned to crawl around. An anonymous account commented under my mother's Facebook post that I had been milking the accident for years. One of Cassie's bridal friends told a local lifestyle blogger there were two sides to every story. At St. Bartholomew Community Church, my mother accepted prayers as if she were the one lying awake with glass cuts in both hands. Mavis Cole sent another message. Bitterness can become its own prison, Maren. I deleted it, then Tara Bell called. Her voice shook so badly I almost told her she did not have to talk. I gave the footage to your attorney and the prosecutor, she said. It is not perfect. I was adjusting the lens. But it shows her hands under your arms. It shows you holding the wheel. It shows you did not stand. For a moment, I could not speak, Tara went on. I was scared. Cassie's lawyer called my office. Your mother sent me a message about family privacy. But then I saw that post. Misunderstanding. I could not let them do that to you. I closed my eyes. Thank you. It should not require courage to tell what happened in front of everyone. She said no, I thought. But in my family, telling the truth had always been treated like violence. 2 days later, Elliot called. He did not ask me to comfort him, which made it easier to listen. I met with Cassie at her attorney's office, he said. Are you okay? No. Silence stretched. She cried the whole time, he said. Not because of what she did to you. Because she said you were going to destroy her future. Of course she had. I asked her about the police report from 2022. Elliot continued. I asked why she told me you were drunk and grabbed the wheel when the report says she was driving and your blood alcohol was 0. What did she say? That I did not understand what it was like to have a sister who made everyone a hostage to pity. The sentence settled between us, ugly and familiar. I am sorry, he said. You keep saying that. I keep meaning it. By the end of that day, Elliot had returned the ring to his parents, canceled the wedding planner, and told Cassie all further communication had to go through attorneys. Margot Granger sent me a quiet email with 3 accessible apartment listings and the name of a disability housing nonprofit she supported. My own mother had sent me Bible verses. Elliot's mother sent me ramp measurements. That contrast hurt in a place no doctor could examine. When my parents realized Elliot would not save Cassie, they tried Graham. Calvin called him on a Thursday morning. I only knew because Elena called me that afternoon, and I could hear anger under her professional calm. Graham recorded the conversation and gave it to Marcus Whitcomb. What did my father say? That everything happened quickly. That Graham may not be sure. That 2 families could be spared public embarrassment if he softened his language. I looked at the kitchen cabinet above my head, the one I could not reach without a grabber. That sounds like Dad. Marcus is reviewing it for witness tampering. For the first time since the fall, I felt something like air enter my lungs all the way. Not happiness, not revenge. Just the relief of knowing the old Whitlock methods had crossed into rooms where people wrote things down. Parker Shaw found more in the Jeep file. Emails between my father and the insurance adjuster from 2023. Careful phrases about emotional disturbance inside the vehicle, implication without proof, blame without fingerprints. Calvin had not changed the fact that Cassie was driving, but he had helped muddy the water around responsibility. Elena explained it simply. Your father is a retired banker. He knows exactly what he was doing with those words. That was the worst part. My parents were not confused. They were skilled. Lena Ortiz called me later that week, voice tight with embarrassment. I saw the police report coverage, she said. And Dr. Bellamy's statement. Maren, I owe you an apology. I wanted to say it was fine because women are trained to make apologies easier for the people giving them. Instead, I said nothing. Lena cleared her throat. I would like to reinstate the contract, with a 50% advance, I said. And a written clause that unverified social media allegations are not grounds for termination. A pause. That is fair. It was more than fair. It was new that night. Sienna Vale sent me a voice message. She had been one of my ballet students before the accident, all elbows and nerves at 14, now 22 and studying dance therapy. Miss Whitlock, you once told me a fall does not get to define the whole performance. I just wanted you to know I remember. I played it twice. Then a third time, not because it fixed anything. Because it reminded me I had existed before Cassie's lies, and parts of me still did. My parents came the next evening. I saw them through the peephole. My mother held a casserole dish. My father held nothing, which meant he had come to negotiate. I opened the door only as far as the chain allowed. Nora's eyes filled the second she saw me. Maren. Honey, no. She blinked. Can we come in? No. Calvin looked past me into the apartment, taking in the loaner chair, the high counter, the narrow hallway. We need to talk like a family. All communication goes through Elena. Nora's face tightened. Cassie will not survive prison. I stared at her. I survived a tree. My father flinched. He recovered quickly. If the Jeep file gets reopened, this could ruin us. There it was. Not sorrow. Not accountability. Exposure. You mean it could ruin the story you told, Maren? My mother whispered. We are still your parents. For 30 months you were Cassie's defense team. I closed the door before either of them could turn tears into weapons. My hands shook afterward. Boundaries looked clean from the outside. From the inside, they felt like cutting through your own bones. Then my email chimed. It was from Adia Marcus Whitcomb. Cassie had been offered a plea agreement. Felony aggravated assault involving a documented disabled victim. 30 months in state custody. Possible parole after about 20 months with good behavior. A 5-year no-contact order. Initial restitution of $420,000. One line at the bottom mattered most. The criminal resolution would not prevent any separate civil action. I sat in my too-high kitchen, beside the bathroom door my chair barely cleared, with my damaged wheelchair propped in the corner like a wounded animal. $420,000. My parents would think that number was the price of silence. But this time, silence was not for sale. Elena called 10 minutes later. They have 7 days, she said. They can fund the initial restitution and let the criminal case resolve, or they can gamble on trial, larger civil damages, and every document from the Jeep accident becoming public. I looked around my apartment. At every corner, I had learned to survive instead of live in. For the first time, I understood the cost of the lie. And for the first times, my parents were about to pay part of it. Chapter 5. The life they QOL'd in. 8 take. The money did not arrive like justice. It arrived in pieces. Through phone calls I did not answer and emails Elena forwarded only when she thought I needed to know. Calvin liquidated part of his 401k and paid the taxes and penalties he had spent years warning other people to avoid. Nora sold the sailboat they had once called their retirement dream, the one they had named Second Grace, because my mother believed even boats needed a church story. Then my parents signed a hard money loan against the house where I had learned to walk, dance, apologize, and disappear. Elena told me Calvin called her office twice to say the amount would destroy their retirement. She did not let him finish the second time. She told him the hospital bill, the damaged wheelchair, the temporary care, the lost work, and the cost of safe housing were not punishments. They were consequences. The $420,000 cleared into escrow on the 7th day. I stared at Elena's email for a long time. I did not feel rich. I felt tired. I felt like someone had finally put a number beside a small corner of what my family had taken, and everyone involved was pretending the number was enormous. Because admitting it was small would make them look worse. $68,000 would go toward the new hospital bills. Part of it would replace my damaged carbon chair. Part would cover legal costs, short-term care, transport, and the deposit on a place where I could get into the bathroom without calculating angles like a siege plan. It was not enough for a lifetime. It was just the first door opening. The hearing took place at Charleston County Courthouse on a hot morning that made the sidewalks shine. I did not sit in the courtroom. Elena had arranged for me to watch from a private room by video because I did not want my first statement heard. With my mother crying behind me and my father measuring every word for damage. Judge Amelia Rosenthal presided. AD Marcus Whitcomb presented the case without theatrics. That mattered to me. He did not call Cassie a monster. He did not need to. He laid out what she had done with the dry precision of someone placing tools on a table. Tara Bell's footage, Graham Latimer's statement, Dr. Bellamy's medical documentation, the emergency room report, the text Cassie sent asking Elliot to say I grabbed her first. Cassie stood beside her attorney in a dark dress that made her look smaller than I remembered. No ivory silk, no champagne, no pastel roses, no diamond lifted toward a camera. Just my sister, her hands folded, her face pale, finally in a room where tears could not edit video. She read an apology her attorney had clearly helped write. The words were correct: harm, responsibility, regret, family pain. They lined up neatly and meant almost nothing. Elliot sat behind the prosecutor's table. He did not look at her. That was the moment I saw Cassie understand something she had not understood in the garden. She had not just lost an engagement party. She had lost the life she had been trying to photograph herself into. Then Elena read my victim impact statement. I had written it 3 times. The first version was too angry. The second was too polite. The third was true. I wrote that I lost ballet before I was ready to stop dancing. I wrote that after December 18, 2022, my body became a map with half the roads closed. I wrote that for 30 months my family asked me to carry a lie because the truth was inconvenient for Cassie. I wrote that being pulled from my wheelchair was not just painful because I fell. It was painful because my sister treated the device that gave me freedom like an ugly prop that could be removed from her perfect scene. I wrote that disabled people are not furniture. We are not decorations. We are not obstacles to be moved for family pictures. And I wrote that I was not asking the court to hate Cassie for me. I was asking the court to record what happened clearly enough that no one in my family could soften it later. Judge Rosenthal accepted the plea. Cassie was convicted of felony aggravated assault, involving a documented disabled victim. 30 months in state custody. Possible parole after about 20 months with good behavior. A 5-year no-contact order. Restitution already funded. All records preserved for the civil case. Before Cassie was led away, she turned once toward Elliot. He stayed seated, no speech, no final look of love, just stillness. The civil case continued after that, quieter and more expensive. Elena used the medical records, the future care assessment, the damaged chair, my lost contracts, my housing needs, and the old Jeep file Parker Shaw had reopened. Parker found enough contradictions, between the police report and my father's insurance statements that everyone suddenly became very interested in settling before depositions. The final structure was a long-term care trust worth $1.85 million. It did not make me rich. That is what people who have never paid for disability care misunderstand. It made me safer. It paid for an accessible apartment, therapy, a new chair, future equipment, transportation, caregiver support if I needed it, and the kind of medical choices I had once watched other people make while I stayed home and counted invoices. My parents hadn't sold the house in the Charleston suburbs before Christmas. Nora told people they were downsizing. St. Bartholomew quietly removed her from the family outreach committee after Graham's recorded call, and the old Facebook post began circulating together. Calvin had to answer questions from insurance lawyers about the 2022 statement. He did not go to prison, neither did my mother. Sometimes karma is not a cell. Sometimes it is being known. Elena sent my no-contact letter the same week I signed the trust documents. My parents were not to come to my home. They were not to call from blocked numbers. They were not to send church friends, cousins, neighbors, or casserole dishes as emotional subpoenas. Any communication had to go through Elena. If they ignored it, she would seek a protective order. I expected to cry after signing. I did not. I went home and packed. The apartment Margot Granger had helped me find was not grand. It was not cinematic. It had wide doorways, a roll-in shower, lowered counters, automatic entry, and a parking space I could actually use. The first morning there, I opened my own front door with a remote from my new black carbon wheelchair and rolled inside without scraping my knuckles, twisting my shoulders, or apologizing for the space I took up. That was when I cried. Lena Ortiz reinstated my contract with the 50% advance I had requested. Later, she referred me to disability advocacy nonprofits that needed grant materials edited. I began doing work that made sense with the life I actually had, not the life my family kept pretending I should mourn forever. That was how I met Nadia Sloan. She was 38, blunt, funny, and allergic to pity. She had spent years caring for her older sister after a spinal injury, so she knew things other people did not think to ask. Whether my bathroom had a safe transfer angle. Whether strangers touched my chair without permission. Whether I wanted help or whether I wanted someone to stop hovering and let me do the thing myself. Nadia became the first person in years who did not make me feel like I had to perform gratitude for basic respect. Dr. Bellamy later connected me with Zurich Neuromobility Trial Center. I did not go because I hated my chair. I did not go chasing a miracle. The trial offered possibilities, not promises. Pain control, nerve signaling, maybe a flicker of movement too small for anyone else to celebrate. I went because for the first time since the Jeep, the choice was mine. Almost 20 months after the hearing, Elena forwarded a scanned letter through the approved legal channel. Cassie had been paroled under supervision. She still had a felony record, a no-contact order, and civil obligations that would follow her. Long after the bakery job she had taken in a small town outside Georgia, her letter was handwritten. She said prison had not made her good. It had only made her quiet enough to see what she had been. She said she was sorry for the ballet, for the Jeep, for the lie, for the chair, for the years she let our parents protect her from my pain. I read it once in my apartment, then I read it again weeks later in Antibes after a Zurich appointment, with Nadia beside me on a sunlit path above the water. I did not answer it. Maybe someday I will. Maybe I will not. Healing did not arrive when Cassie apologized. It arrived the morning I realized her apology no longer had the power to unlock or close anything inside me. Nadia and I moved along the seaside path slowly. My new chair caught the light, black and clean and visible. No white cloth, no forced picture. No one asking me to move out of the frame. Nadia nudged my shoulder and called me her little sister, teasing, warm, easy. For once, the word sister did not hurt. I thought about the garden, the glass, the blood, the way everyone had seen Cassie pull me from my chair. I thought about my parents choosing her future over my truth until the truth became more expensive than the lie. I thought about Elliot sitting still in court, Tara handing over the footage, Graham refusing to soften what he saw, Dr. Bellamy saying no one could speak for me. In the end, I did not win because Cassie went to prison. I did not win because my parents lost money. I did not win because Charleston finally believed me. I won because I woke up in a place where no one told me to cover my wheelchair. No one asked me to call cruelty family, and no one had the right to tell my story wrong again. If you were Maren, would you ever answer Cassie's letter? And do you think her parents should have faced charges for protecting the lie for 30 months? Tell me what you think, because some families do not break when the truth comes out. They break because the lies were protected for too long.